Good afternoon, boys and girls. And if you're an adult joining us, thank you so much for joining us as well. We're back at the studio with Critical English Grade 7, and our topic for today, you'll probably see when I move out of the way, is clauses. And we're going to be looking at independent and dependent clauses. And we're going to try to make it very simple so you don't have too much of, stress on your brains. All right, so with us today, we have our participants from yesterday. Same participants, 3 lovely young ladies, and we have Tiana. Can we call you Princess Tiana? Yes, we have Alicia as well. You want to shake your hands? And we also have Janaya. Thank you, Janaya, for joining us. So it's a pleasure to be here again with all of you. And to get started, we want to learn a little bit more about you, and I'll share a little bit more about myself. So as I was telling you earlier, I have a hobby. I like to take photos. So I take my cameras and look at the sunset and look at people and do all sorts of crazy things with it. And what I like about cameras and photography is that it captures the moment, and you can't ever get to see that same sunset again or that same smile on that person's face. And I also take selfies, because who doesn't, right? Everyone takes selfies. Great. So since I've shared something about myself in terms of hobbies, share something about yourself, and then we can go into our program for today. We'll start with Tiana and rung the table.
Okay, well, another thing about me is that, yes, I like to draw. And I just like to draw anime characters, basically.
Very nice. Anime characters. You'll share later with us some of the characters, right? Alicia, what about you? What is something you enjoy doing?
I enjoy expressing myself creatively, especially in my spare time, like doing craft and, for example, model building.
Craft and model buildings. Excellent. So maybe you're thinking of going into the field of building actual buildings or designing buildings, maybe. Nice. And
yes, one thing that I love to do is learning how to play a musical instrument, and that is the piano, so I can have a better understanding with music. And my favorite song to play is Faded, but I forgot who made the song.
Oh, Faded. I know the song too, but I can't help you with the artist either. Thanks so much for sharing. So if you're joining us on the live, you can also put in the comments what your hobby is. If you like, you don't have to. No one is forcing you. All right? So go ahead and do that for me. And we will continue with our class for today. So we have on the board independent and dependent clauses. We have to brainstorm. So brainstorm means we're going to be thinking and putting our ideas together. The 2 words that we have there are independent and dependent. So the first one, when you hear of independent, can you give me an example of something that is independent? You may have learned this in your social studies class before.
Our country.
Our country. Excellent, Janaya and Tiana. Our country. Guyana is an independent nation. So it's independent because... Go ahead, Janaya. Good, it relies on its own. Does anybody control the affairs of Guyana, or does Guyana control its own affairs?
Guyana controls its own.
Definitely, good. And before that, we were dependent on another country. Do you remember the country we were dependent on? Britain. Exactly, Britain. So we can say the British Empire, but the common term right now is Britain, or also known as England, right? So yes. So once we were dependent on them, and now we are independent. So we don't need another country to govern us, because we govern ourselves, right? And what about yourselves? Would you say you are dependent or independent?
Dependent.
You're dependent on?
Our parents.
Or your parents. Excellent. And when you become an adult, you are expected to be independent and make your own decisions and work and earn a living and so forth, right? So we know what dependent and we know what independent is, right? Excellent. So let's move to the next one. What are we looking at? The first picture that you're seeing there?
A cow.
It's a cow. It's a big cow, right? Or we can say a big fat cow, right? Good. You're seeing almost the entire body of the cow, correct? So we're going to call that a complete picture, or the whole picture, right? So let's look at what we have there. And as a reminder, remember yesterday we talked about sentences. Our sentence must have subject, verb, and this is a new concept that we didn't talk about yesterday. It must make complete sense. Okay, good. That's supposed to be make complete sense. So if it doesn't make complete sense, even though it has a subject and a verb, is it a sentence? If it doesn't make complete sense. It can only qualify as a sentence if it makes complete
Complete sense.
sense. It's not just sense, but complete sense. Good. So that's something new we're learning today. And the example that we have there on the board as our sentence is, the cow is staring at me. Do you think the cow is staring at you? It's looking at each of us, right? Good. So the cow would be the subject of the sentence. Our verb, Tiana, is staring. Excellent. And at me gives us more information about the cow, right? The cow is staring at me, right? Good. So it has a subject, it has a verb, and it makes complete sense. So it is a sentence. Good. So we're all on the same page. Now let's look at this one here now. Remember we learned about independent just now, right? What it means. We learned what a sentence is. So on the board here we have a definition. And it says independent clauses, because that's what we're learning about today, right? Clauses. Independent clauses are a group of words that contains a subject, a verb, and expresses a complete thought. So, does this sound familiar to you? It sounds just like the definition that we had for a sentence. So, a sentence is an independent clause. Good. Everybody got that, right? So the sentence that we had just now is also here again. The cow is staring at me is an example of an independent clause. So both a sentence and both the independent clause has a subject, has a verb, and makes complete sense. But there are different ways of writing sentences. So although this sentence is an independent clause, does it mean that all sentences are independent clauses? Let's examine that. Let's go to the next one. So we have now dependent clauses. Look at the photo again. I have cropped the picture of the cow. Are you seeing the entire cow?
No.
Are you seeing the entire picture?
No.
But you can still see that it's staring at you, right? So there's part of the cow there, and it doesn't give you the full picture. So let's see what our definition on the board says. Dependent clauses are a group of words
that contain a subject, verb, but does not express a complete thought.
Good. Is it similar to the independent clause? Does it have a subject?
Yes.
Yes. Does it have a verb?
Yes.
Yes. But what does it not have?
It doesn't express a complete thought.
It does not express a complete thought. Can we make this into a full sentence though? Can it stand as a sentence on its own? It can't. But do you think we can make it into a sentence that can stand on its own? So it needs what to stand as a sentence?
Complete thought.
Complete thought. And how do we get a complete thought? We have to join it to an, remember Guyana and Britain, right?
Independent clause.
Good. So for the independent clause to become a sentence, it has to be joined to. An independent clause depends on something. What does it depend on to become a sentence?
This is an independent clause.
Good. Because the independent clause can stand on its own, right? A dependent clause cannot stand on its own. So for it to stand on its own, it needs to be attached to an independent clause. And then it can stand as a sentence. If it isn't added to an independent clause, it cannot be a sentence. It will be something that we call a clause. It will just be a dependent clause. All right. So we're going to have the example. We're going to have Tiana read the example for us. And we're going to have Alicia explain to us why I scratched out part of that sentence. Go ahead, Tiana.
The cow is staring.
You have to read the entire thing.
The cow is staring at me.
Thank you very much. Alicia, why did I scratch out that part?
Because it is not an independent clause.
It is not an independent clause. So the part that I scratched out is the it completes the sentence, right? So the part that I have there, the cow is staring, what do we have in that part there? We have, look at our definition again. Does it have a subject?
Yeah.
What is the subject?
The cow
The cow. And the verb
is
is staring. So it has a subject, it has a verb. But does that make complete sense? The cow is staring. Does that give us a complete picture of something? No. So that there's an example of a dependent clause. But if we put in that little bit more, the cow is staring at me, that entire thing now becomes an independent clause. Can we call the at me an independent clause? No, why not? It does not have
A subject and a
oh,
verb.
exactly. Good. So that part that we scratched out isn't the independent clause, but you put that to the sentence, to the clause, sorry, and they can now stand as an independent sentence. Cool? Everybody on the same page? All right, let's continue. Good. So yesterday again we learned about types of sentences. Remember the 4 types, right? So we're learning about a different sentence form now. So yesterday we were learning about the purpose of the sentence. Why is the sentence written, or why is someone using the sentence? What is the purpose of them using it? Today we're learning at the sentence form. So we have, what's the first one in the first block?
Simple sentences.
Simple sentences. Then we have
Compound sentences.
compound sentences, and then we have
Complex sentences.
complex sentences. All right, take a minute to take all that in. Simple, compound, and complex. Are we going okay? Anybody need a little clarification? No? All right, let's continue. So under simple sentence there, it has one independent clause. Clear? Crystal? Good. So it's a simple sentence is an independent clause. Correct. And we know an independent clause has a subject, a verb, and it makes complete sense. So if it has those 3 qualities, it is a simple sentence, and it is also an independent clause because it can stand on its own. Doesn't need any help. Good. Let's look at the compound sentences now. This is where we have how many independent clauses?
2 independent.
2. We could also have more, but generally we have 2. So 2 independent clauses. So basically we have 2 sentences that can stand on their own, but we just decide to join them. Do you know how we can join those 2 sentences?
With a conjunction.
A conjunction. Can you give me an example of a conjunction, Tiana? And. Excellent. So we can join 2 sentences. The cow is staring at me, and I am staring at the cow. Is that a complete? Are we using 2 independent clauses there? So we know the first one, the cow is staring at me, is already an independent sentence, right? The other independent sentence is I am staring at the cow. And we join those 2 with the conjunction and. Excellent. And there is another way we can join those. So as we go later into the lesson, you will see how we can join them without using a conjunction. Exciting? So see if you can work your brain magic there and think of it, so when the time comes you can probably tell me what the answer is, right? The third one there is complex sentences. So what's different with this one? It has 1 independent clause and 1 dependent clause. It could also have more than 1 dependent clause, but we're just going to work with this simple format here. Independent and dependent. So we can join them by using conjunctions as well, but they're called something different. So we're going to go into that now, right? So let's just review here. Simple sentences.
1 independent.
1, good, because it is an independent clause, right? The second one is compound sentences. 2 independent clauses, and they're joined usually by a conjunction. And we give the example of and. The third one, complex sentences. 1 independent clause and at least 1 dependent clause. So the dependent clause, has to rely on the independent clause to make sense. Everybody with me? Sure? Okay. All right. So we have a discussion here now. And I have 2 photographs. You can't really see this one at the end if you're joining the live, but it's a car on a road. Let's just say a yellow car on the road. And we have a bicycle there. So I'm going to ask you to make a sentence using but as the conjunction to join those 2 ideas together. So before we do that, let's look at, I have to remove this here from the board. All right, so we have independent clauses, and the first one there is an example of a sentence. It says, I was tired after working all day. All right, so you guys don't work, do you? But you go to school sometimes, right? Do you also feel tired sometimes? So if we want to make this sentence relevant to you, we can say, I was tired after attending school all day. We can make that work for you as well. And this here would be an example of an independent clause, and it would also be an example of a sentence. Excellent. Let's look at the second one now. I was tired after working all day, so I decided to go to bed early. Do you notice something different about this one? So we had one independent clause in the first example. How many independent clauses do we have in the second example? We have two, and they are joined by the conjunction so. So far, how many conjunctions have we talked about? And now we're learning about so. What do you notice here? Before the conjunction so, what punctuation mark do you see?
A comma.
There's a comma. So, if I were to give you an example to do, and I ask you to underline the independent clauses, you know you have to stop where? So number one will stop where?
A day.
Day. And what's the indicator that we're starting something else? The comma followed by the conjunction. And then we have the other independent sentence there. So let's try to figure it out. I was tired after working all day. What is the subject of this one? I. What is the verb? Was tired. And after working all day gives it a complete thought. Let's look at this one over here. I decided to go to bed early. What's our subject? I. And what will be our verb? Decided to go. Because decided is past tense. We'll learn about that in a different session, right? Decide to go to bed early. So both are independent clauses, and they are joined by the conjunction so, and the conjunction has what before it? A comma. Excellent, excellent. So we have our photos here at the bottom, and I want you girls to work together to give me a sentence here. And the sentence must contain the conjunction but, and it must have one independent clause before the conjunction and one independent clause again after the conjunction. So let's do this together. We have a bicycle here, and the bicycle is doing what? It's parked. Good. So our subject of the sentence can be?
I parked my bicycle.
Or let's use the bicycle as the subject. You want to use I? All right. I parked my bicycle at a restaurant. Good. I parked my bicycle at a restaurant. We have a subject. What's our subject? I. What's our verb? Parked. And the rest of the clause gives us the complete thought, right? I parked my bicycle at a restaurant, but let's bring in this other part here now. But that car is yellow. What cars are usually yellow?
I went in a taxi.
Taxi. But I
rode a taxi home.
You could say I took a taxi home. But yeah, so you parked there. So originally you probably had planned to leave with the bicycle, and then you ended up leaving with the car. I parked my bicycle. Let's just collect that for now. Well, we can always switch it up later. You got the two independent clauses, and that's the main thing we were looking for, right? I took the taxi home, or I took the cab home. So you got those two correctly, and we can learn a little bit later about how to use but as a conjunction. But you got both of the independent clauses correct, and you should be proud of yourself, right? So give yourself a little clap. We don't want to be too loud. So let us continue with our lesson now. And let's see. Good. So joining two independent clauses, we already learned about which one? We learned about and. Which other one we learned about today so far? So we also learned about which one we used just now? But. So let's look at what we have here. And you probably can remember this from school. Yes? Or you did see this before? First time seeing this? So it reads fanboys and it looks like a fan. So I want you to fan yourself because it's hot, right? Good, you're fanning yourself. Fanboys. So obviously fanboys is an acronym. Each letter there stands for something else. So F, according to our chart, F stands for for. So another coordinating conjunction that we can use is for. Notice I'm using another word there, right? So keep that in mind. What's the other word there? And. So the A stands for and. The N now stands for nor. The B stands for but. The O stands for or. Y stands for yet. And S stands for so. Do we know all of these words?
Yes.
So all of these words are conjunctions. Sorry, I made a mistake. It should have been coordinating conjunctions. Is that the word I said earlier? Can't remember. Coordinating conjunctions. So how many of them do we have? F, A, N, B, O, Y, S. How many?
5.
7 of them, right? We have 7 of them. So close your eyes. Fanboys. The F stands for for. The A stands for
And.
the N stands for nor. The B stands for
But.
good. The O stands for
Or.
excellent. The Y stands for
Yet.
and the S stands for
So.
good. You did a great job. Even when I blindsided you, basically, right? So you did a great job. And the acronym is basically for you to remember what those conjunctions are, right? They're called coordinating conjunctions. So we have this one here, examples. Now these are examples of sentences I've put together, and we're going to try to examine the sentences to see if we remember which one can stand as an independent clause or which part of it can be a dependent clause. And while we're doing that, we will try to figure out if it is a simple sentence. What are the other 2 types we have? Compound sentences, and we also have complex sentences. So which one sounds more complicated to you? Complex. Even the word is like, it tells you it's supposed to be hard. But we're going to make it easy today so you don't have to be frightened when you have to use or when you read complex sentences, right? We're going to try to make it easy. So if I'm going too fast, let me know. If you don't understand and you want me to do it over or to say it differently, just put your hands up and say, Miss, you need to slow down a bit, or Miss, can you explain it a different way? Because if you don't tell me that, then I would just assume you know, and you all go home and you complain and say, but Miss didn't explain this thing to me properly. And then I got to get the call from your mommy. Why you didn't teach this thing properly? I don't want that, right? All right, good. Examples. The first one there. We're going to ask Alicia, because we're mixing it up. Alicia, please read the first sentence. Yes, they're all sentences. The first sentence on the board. I was
tired after walking all day.
Thank you very much. Can you tell us if that is an independent clause or a dependent clause? Or if it has both or what?
Independent.
It's an independent clause, and why do you say it's an independent clause?
Because it has a subject, verb, and complete thought.
Good, it expresses a complete thought. So what is the subject in the sentence?
I was tired.
The subject.
I was.
Once again, subject.
I.
Who or what are we talking about?
I
I. Good, so I is the subject, and what is the verb?
was tired.
Was tired. Excellent. And it makes complete sense. So you got that right. It's an independent clause, so that makes it what type of sentence?
A declarative sentence.
All right, declarative sentence we did yesterday. And it can be a declarative because it states something, right? It's a statement, correct. So you are correct, but given the types of sentences we were looking at today, or the forms of the sentences, simple, compound, and complex, even though it is a declarative sentence, which one of the others will it fall into? Which can it also be?
Simple.
Okay, you said simple, but you sound like if you're not too sure. Let us remind ourselves, a simple sentence has a subject, a verb, makes complete sense. An independent clause has a subject, has a verb, and it makes complete sense. So does this fit into the category of independent clause? You said yes earlier, right?
Yes.
So does it also fit into the category of a simple sentence?
Yes.
Yes. So you are correct. So are you a bit sure about it now?
Yes.
Good. So I was tired after walking all day is a simple sentence. Let's look at the second one. We're going to ask Tiana to read this one out for us. And we're following the same trend. It's all about it's all about tiredness. I don't know why all these tiredness examples came to me, but we got to roll with it, right? The second one,
I was tired after walking all day, so I decided to go to bed early.
Thank you very much.
Miss
So
Paul.
I have already identified something blue. What's the blue thing that's there?
A comma and a conjunction.
It's a comma and it is a conjunction. So that already tells us that we have two independent clauses because both of them have a subject, I, both of them got a verb, and both of them can stand on their own as a complete sentence. For example, if I decide to stand here and block the rest of it, so I decided, if I take out the so, will that stand on its own as a sentence? I decided to go to bed early. Yes, subject, verb, and it makes complete sense. So because we have the so here and we have the comma before the conjunction, this is a compound sentence.
Miss, you forgot all the L and the L for
Oh, these old brains. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Yes, that is supposed to be all. You notice I got it right the other places? Yeah. All right, thanks again. So the third one, Janaya, your turn. I was tired.
I was tired after walking all day, semicolon. I decided to go to bed early.
Something is different with this one here, right? What's the punctuation mark that's in blue?
Semicolon.
It's a semicolon. Do we have the same sentence that we have above here for this part, the first part?
Yes, miss.
Do we have the same sentence here that we had at the top?
Yes, miss.
What's the only thing that's different?
the conjunction so?
The conjunction isn't there and we no longer have a comma. It's replaced by a semicolon. So remember I said we're going to learn a different way to do it? So we can join two independent clauses into one sentence by using a what's this called?
Semicolon.
A semicolon. So we do not always have to use a conjunction to join our sentences. We can use a semicolon, but it must be related. So you're walking, so you decide to do this. So there must be two related things. You can't do this if these two things are not related. If you're going to switch the subject, at least the topic must remain the same. If you're going to keep the same topic, if you're going to switch, because this one here we switched the bed part, right? But what was the same? I, and the same was I. So we're talking about the same person. One action happened first and then it was followed by another action. So it must be related, the two independent clauses. Whose turn is it now? Alicia? Your turn again, right? Can you please read?
I was tired from walking all day, semicolon. Therefore, I decided to go to bed early.
Thank you. And I probably made the same mistake here. It's supposed to all be walking, but it's working, but same thing, right? I was tired from working all day, semicolon. Therefore, I decided to go to bed early. So there's something else going on here, right? What do you notice going on there? We have therefore. Was that one of the conjunctions we used before? No, this is a new one. So we do not have enough time to explain why this one was used, but this one is different from the other conjunctions. So another class, we're going to touch back on this. I just want to show you the form there, right? So let's look at the other two examples. We go to Tiana and then we're going to have Janaya. Tiana, can you please read the one starting with since?
Since I was tired, I decided to go to bed.
Good. The one, look at it. Do we have independent clause, dependent clause? What's going on there?
Independent clause.
Which one is the independent clause?
I decided to go to bed.
I decided to go to bed is the independent clause. Read the first part of it, the one in purple. Can it stand on its own as a sentence?
No.
Since I was tired. No, it cannot stand on its own as a sentence. So the purple part there is what kind of clause? A dependent clause. So when we have a dependent clause and an independent clause, it is a what kind of sentence?
Complex.
It's a complex sentence, right? Where is the comma in that example? After which clause?
The dependent.
After the dependent clause, followed by the independent clause. Janaya, read the last sentence and tell us which part or if the entire thing is an independent clause.
I decided to go to bed since I was tired.
Good. Is it the same sentence as the one before?
Yes.
Just the order changed. So instead of the purple part being at the starting, remember what did the purple part stand for? Dependent clause. So instead of the purple part being at the starting, it was at the end. Do we have a comma in the second one?
No.
No. So when you have the independent clause first, it is not, it doesn't need a comma because you go straight into your dependent clause. So I know that's a lot to take in. So I just want you to review the notes and maybe later you can see the examples. We do not have time to go through the practice ones, but you did a great job, Justin. You should be very proud of yourselves. And I was also reminded of some things as well. So give yourself a nice little clap. Thank you. And for the audience, thank you for joining us today as well. It was great being here with you again. I will see you next week for grade 7 English, and we can all learn together. So thanks for coming. Take care. Bye-bye.
Good afternoon, boys and girls. Welcome to Critical Math. Today we're going to continue our vocabulary in mathematics, multiples. Yesterday we looked at factors, and so today we will continue with multiples. All right? So welcome to our fun session. So let's begin. Here. All right. So let's do a little recap from our session yesterday. So yesterday we examined factors, and we found that when you multiply two numbers, actually it can be more than two numbers, right? So for our session we're going to use two numbers. 2 times 3 equals 6. So it means that 2 is a factor as well as 3 is a factor. So that's what we learned yesterday. All right. Secondly, we also examined that based on the numbers, we have numbers that are composite. So this came out yesterday, as well as prime. All right. And for the composite numbers, what we found, they had more than two factors. Great. And for the prime, only two factors. Great. Only two factors. And you remember what those two factors are, right?
The number 1 and
The number itself and 1. Great. So we also looked at how we a unique way of representing the factors of a particular number. All right. So for example, 6, we could express it in terms of its prime factors. That's where we ended yesterday. So we can have our 3 here. So we know that 6 would be 2 times 3. So therefore the prime factors are
2 and 3.
right? Prime factors would be 2 and 3 for the number 6. So that's where we stopped yesterday. Now continuing today, we are going to look at multiples, and some of you may wonder why we review what we did previously in our session, right? Now the concepts are related, right? They're very much related. So for example, coming back to factors, right? Let me use 2 times 3 equals 6. And so 2 is a factor, 3 is a factor. And today, I have to use black. That's 6 here. The 6 is a product, right? Of multiplying 2 and 3. So the number 6 becomes what? A multiple. The number 6 is a multiple. All right. So a multiple is a result of multiplying, or is a product. The mathematical term for multiplying two or more numbers, right, is product, right? So the result is a product. So it means that 6 is a product of, right, as a result of multiplying 2 by 3. All right? Are we clear here? Great. So therefore, to continue with our concept, let's look at number line. Hold on. Good. So to make our concept a little clearer today as it relates to multiples, let's examine a number line. So you see that our number line is numbered from, can you see 0, right? It's 0. Well, 0 to 34. All right, so starting from 0 represent the whole number system. All right. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to divide this line into some parts. So let's check it out. So let's divide this line into 2 parts. There you have it. And write a number 2. Right? So can you see anything coming out? Any relationship coming out there with the line and the division, the first division? Nothing specific yet, right? Great, nothing specific yet. So let's add let's add a second division. Hold on. Anything specific? No? Nothing yet? All right, so let me add a third addition here. Hold on. Good, a third one. Any pattern emerging? Okay, so you can see the number, the line is divided into 3 parts, all right? If you look at the first division, what is the number that it stopped at?
2.
Good. The second division is?
4.
All right, and the third division?
6.
So what do you notice?
Those are the multiples of 2.
Multiples of 2. So it's like saying, can you see a table coming out there? So it's like 2 times, right? So 2 times the first division is 2. 2 times the second division is 4. And 2 times the third division?
6.
Exactly. So let's put another one here, just so you see. See that? So what I want you to do is to write down each of the ending numbers here, right? The first division, we have a 2, 4, 6, 8. Good? So it's like our 2 times table, right? So 2, 4, 6, 8, those are multiples of 2. Great. So let's clear this. Let's try another number. Undo. Clear all. So let's add, and let's make this, it's 5. Let's make this 5. Right? It's a 5. God. Right. Same thing?
Yes.
See the same pattern, right? So mathematics is all about patterns. So the first division, what we have? 5. So 5 times 1, 5. 5 times the second division, 10. All right? So you're writing down the divisions, right? The ending values for the divisions. We're going to pick up on a pattern here as well. Any questions so far? Great. So anybody want to pick a number and see if the pattern will continue?
6.
6. 6 is too easy.
12.
12. Let's see how far we go with a 12. 12 might be a little too big, but let's see. How much we count in there? All right, we're going to see if we're going to land at 12. We're going to fix that. So we're more than 12. So we bring that up here. We're at 12. Right? You can see that we're at 12. Done. 12. The third one. Great. See? Our 12 times table. So we have a number line. And we divide it. Oh no, I can't get it. No. Sorry. I'll change. Alright. So we divide our number line into 3 parts, but we in terms of 12, right? 12 parts. So we have 3 parts here, so it takes us to 36 again. So you write down those numbers as well. All right. So far we've had 36 is a factor. 36 is a multiple of 12. 12 is 24 is a multiple of 12, and 12 is also a multiple of 12. Any? Do you notice any pattern with the numbers there? So the first one we examined was 2, right? 2. So when you look at the list of multiples for 2, what is the pattern there?
You just adding on to.
Right, so it's like you're adding on 2. Very good. But the first number, what is the first number in the list of the multiples? 2. For 2, it's 2. So if you look at the other numbers, it's what? 5, because we examined 5, and the other one is 12. So what it is saying is that your smallest, right, multiple would be the particular number that you're looking at. You think you follow? So if you're looking at the multiples of 2, 2 is going to be your smallest multiple. And it's going to go to where? What's the largest multiple of 2? Infinity. Because you can keep adding 2 or you multiply by 2, right? So it goes to infinity. All right, so that's very good, right? Very good. Great. So let's examine now. Now, sometimes you may look at a number and you may want to know whether if it's divisible or if it's a multiple of a, right? So let's check that out. Now, there are some divisibility rules that we use, right? So that by inspection. So rather than going to do long division, and then you decide, and then you realize, oh, this number is not divisible by this particular number, right? And then you have to go try another number, right? So there's some little tricks that you can actually do to know whether a number is divisible by a certain number. So for example, if a number is divisible by 2, what do you observe?
Any number that ends in 2 is divisible.
Not only good, and also what?
When it's even.
Even as well, right? So you need to add that to our list there as well. So it's also, or if you can say once a number ends in 0, 2, 4, like that, right? So once a number ends in 0, an even number. 0 is not an even number, by the way. All right? Good. What about 3? If you want to know if the number, right, if it's a multiple of 3, means it has to be divisible by 3, right? Good. So the trick is to look at the number and then you add up the digits, right? And if the digits, when you add up the digits, and if it's divisible by 3, well, then the number is divisible by 3. So that's a trick. So you can take down the little note there. So you're adding the digits of the number, and if the sum is divisible by 3, then the number is divisible by 3. So that's a little trick to examine. And so we're going to try out these rules, in a few minutes. Everybody all right? So a number is divisible by 2, right? If it's an even number, if it's even, that's clear, right? Or it also ends in 0, right? Okay. Now, a number is divisible by 3. For it to be divisible by 3, you're adding up the digits of the number. So if the number has like 4 digits, you're adding the 4 digits. And if the sum is divisible by 3, well, then the entire number is divisible by 3. You think you follow? So let's say you have a number 111. Write that down. 111. 111. 111. Is it divisible by 3? Or is it a multiple of 3? Right? 2 ways of saying the same thing. Is it a multiple of 3? Yes or no? You're saying yes? Why yes? When you add the 3 ones, you're getting 3, and then 3 is divisible by 3. That's what right? Great. So is it 152 divisible by 3?
Miss, 82.
152.
No, miss.
Why not?
Because it adds up to 8.
8. And isn't 8 divisible by 3?
No.
Oh, no. Great. Wonderful. All right. Let's check out what happens, right, if a number is a multiple of 4. So, if the digits of the number are divisible by 4, then the number is divisible by 4. Usually, depends on the number, you look at the last 2 digits, right? And if the last 2 digits of the number, if the last 2 digits of the number are divisible by 4, well, then the entire number is divisible by 4. Right? So let's look at a number, 128. 128. 128. Is it divisible by 4?
Yeah.
How do you know?
Because 4 can go into 12 and also 8.
But the last 2 digits are what? 2 and
8.
exactly. So 28 is a multiple of 4, right? Great. So that you see how you're picking up on this quickly? All right. So great. All right. Let's come to an easy one. This is a fun one. So if a number ends in 5 or 0, then the number is divisible by. That's easy. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. That's easy, right? So no use I giving you 128. Is 128 divisible by 5? A big fat no, right? All right, let's go to one more. We look at 6. Right, we can only do a few in our time that we are allotted. All right. 6. So if the number is divisible by 2 and 3, it is also divisible by 6. So you have to look for divisibility as it relates to the number 2 and divisibility as it relates to the number 3. So that's easy, right? All right. So what about 10? How would you know if a number is divisible by 10?
If it ends with 0.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. Now 7 is a little difficult, so we don't have enough time on the program to go through all of that. So in the next some other time we'll go through. All right. So at least you have some idea now, right, as to whether a number is a multiple of a particular number, right? So by inspection you can say, okay, this small number is a multiple. Everybody get the idea? Yes. Great. So with that being said, let's examine a. Where am I? Got this one. Quickly, just have a few minutes remaining. So choose the correct answer. All right, so you can work with this as a team, or so the answer is either yes or no. So just now, this is kind of similar. Is 111 divisible by 6? So what is the rule for divisibility by 6?
If it's divisible
By 2 and 3, huh? Therefore, it's divisible by 6. So what do you say here?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes? No? Yes? No? No? Yes?
Yeah.
You're saying yes?
Yeah.
You're saying yes? You're saying not sure? Not
Sitting
sure.
on the fence right now.
All right, so we just have a few minutes, so it's either a yes or a no. So I'm choosing what you decide to choose. So what are we going with, a yes or a no? Okay, all those who say yes, put your hand up.
Partially.
Partially? Is that no? Okay. Is the answer correct? No. All right. So no worries. Let's look at the next one. That's not an issue. So we're in a learning process here, right? So we make mistakes. All right. Is 162 divisible by 10? Come on, no working is required here.
I'm just writing the question.
Oh. Yes or no? No or yes?
No.
No. Correct. What about 135? Is it divisible by 4? So the rule concerning divisibility by 4 is that if the last two digits are divisible by 4, well then the number is divisible by 4. No. Great. Let's check out the next. Do we have a next? All right.
No.
We don't have a next. No worries. So what have we learned today?
Some ways you can figure out how numbers can be divisible by 3, 4.
Yeah, you can. So you can determine whether a number is
tricks you
if it's a multiple of a particular number. So that's where your divisibility comes in, right? So you check on the rules. So it's like a quick way of checking whether it's divisible, right? And so so at school you will normally do the long division, right? So the long division way is the usual way of trying it, but you more or less do it by trial and error. And so it takes up some amount of time, right? For example, if the number is extremely large, it takes up some amount of time. But with these little tricks, you can tell whether the number is divisible by the number or not. And that helps you to be more efficient, right? So as mathematicians, you're not only trying to get something correct or to find a particular solution, but you also want to be efficient in how you more or less find your solution. You think you follow? So you want to save on a lot of time in terms of how you work. All right? So we also looked at multiples, and what did we say about multiples? What are multiples?
Multiples. The multiple numbers are product.
Yeah, the multiples is the result of a product. So when you multiply two numbers, the result that you get is a multiple. So the two numbers that you multiply now, those are the factors. You think you follow? Right, so the multiple of any number as well, it goes from that number all the way down to infinity. So if you compare factors as it relates to numbers, right? Factors are few, so we can say if we're comparing based on what was done between yesterday and the last time. So factors are few, right? Multiples, what happened with multiples? M, what M represent?
Multiple.
Many. Multiples are many, right? You think you follow? So factors are 2 times 3. The multiple will give you the end result, which is 6. Right? Factors 4 times 5. The result or the product 20. Questions? And obviously, if you divide the multiple by the factor, there would be, you will have any remainder, right? There would be no remainder. All right? So 6 divided by 2 will give us 3. Exactly. All right? 6 divided by 3 will give us 2 exactly. So that's the relationship between the two. All right, 20 divided by the factor 4 will give you the result 5 exactly. And 20 divided by the factor 5 is going to give you the number 4 exactly. There's no remainder in those cases. All right. All right, so you want to give an example of your own? So give me an example. Come on. Of 2 factors, yes. 2 factors when you multiply. Give me an example of 2 factors.
4 and 3.
Okay. 4 times 3. So our multiple will be
12.
12. Great. Factors, 2 factors.
2 and 3.
We used 2 and 3 already. Come on, any 2 numbers.
9 and 2.
9 times. Who?
9 times
2?
Yeah.
2 9s. 18. So factor. Multiple. Right? These are all multiples, but of different for different factors. Yes.
8 times 5.
8 times 5. 40?
Yes.
Cool. And then obviously, the multiple divided by 4 will give us 3. 12 divided by 3 will give us 4. Alright? 18 divided by 9 will give us 2. 18 divided by 2 will give us 9. And finally, if I draw a line here, we can add the last one. 40 is a multiple divided by 8, factor gives us 5. 40 the multiple divided by 5 will give us 8. Alright? Now, like I said earlier, you can have more than 2 factors, can result in a particular multiple, right? So 2 times 3 times 4. So we have 3 factors here rather than 2. So it would give a particular multiple, right? 4 3 is 12, 12 2s 24. Got it? And then you can add to the list. 2 times 3 times 4 times 5. So they will be all factors of whatever number is given there, right? What would be the number?
$120.
120. So 120 is a multiple of those 4 numbers. Right? Any questions? You sure? All right. So, is 120 divisible by 6?
Yes.
How do you know?
Because 2 and
Because
oh, wait,
look-
2 and 3 can divide into 120 equal.
Yeah, because look right there. The factors are right here. Right? So, good. It's good that you know the rule. But the factors are staring us right here. And it's also divisible by 4. Because, look, even if I put a demarcation here, let me put a little demarcation here. I'm looking at the last 2 digits. It's 20. 20 is divisible by 4. And look, 4 is already a factor.
5 2.
And 5 too, because
Oh, because it ends.
and the 0. Alright? So we have how many rules in there? We have 4 rules in there. Right? And you can actually see the factors. That's the beautiful thing here. Alright? The 4 rules. divisibility by 2, divisibility by 3, divisibility by 4, divisibility by 5, and I think we add a 1 with 6, right? Right.
Yeah.
So you had, exactly. All right. So, that's it. Any questions? So was it fun today? So what have you learned?
Tricks I can use.
Tricks that you can use, right? No tricks, the Guyanese say, no tricks, no living, right? So tricks are good in mathematics and helps you to, like I said, to be a little more efficient. So that if your parent wake you up in the middle of the night and say, hello, help me with this. Is this number divisible by a certain number? You should be able to tell your parent what? Yes or no. All right? Good. And then later on, you can show them why. All right? All right. So that brings us to the end of our session today. So I hope you had a great time. We see you next time for more mathematics, more critical mathematics.